Welcome to another video. As you can see, it's on its side. So this video is about how I built a jig to do that, and it's going to make life so much easier. If you're working on a car, if you put it down to a shell, get it on a jig, get it on a rotisserie. It's quite easy to make. I guess the raw material is probably about 50 quid. When I bought them, I don't know what they've been now. Say even if you double that and it costs you £100, it's worth every penny. It took me about a day and a half to do it, and a fair bit of that time was figuring out what to do, particularly where it connects into the base jig. I spent about 2 hours staring at that until I had an epiphany about how to do that. So keep watching, you'll see how we overcome that. I've built the jig extendable as well, so trying to think ahead a little bit. When I do the manta is a fair bit bigger than the Escort, so I can extend the jig out to suit that. And I've also built it so it can be used without the base jig as well, so it can be just a floor standing roll over jig if I ever needed it. I haven't really made too much effort about making where it connects onto the car to expandable or adaptable, because that only took a couple of hours to make those anyway, so I just make a new one to suit whatever car. An axle stand got robbed of its parts to use for the tube. That's the other thing. It took me a while as I hunted around the garage to see what tube. I had plenty of tube to make an outer piece, but I had no inner tube, and found that the inner bit of an axle stand fitted quite nicely into the tube that I had, so that got sacrificed. And yeah, keep watching, you'll see how we build this, and happy days. Right, let's crack on with it. Okay, so I know from looking at internet pictures of rollover jigs on Escorts that the pivot point is about there. Now I've looked at other ones that have gone straight onto between the bumper mounts there. They're clearly quite top heavy, and up here somewhere would be too bottom heavy. So it would appear that about there is a nice balance. Obviously it'll have to be central, but that's not quite central to the car because the weight of the car isn't that perfect up and down as it happens. So that's where we're going to aim for, just the centre of that grille area there. Now, I've done some very detailed drawings. So the height is 58 in total and the width is 64 in total. So what we're looking at is 32 to the centre of the rollover jig. It's a pretty simple design, just triangles, and these legs that come off here, I will work out a way of bolting them down onto those legs so that the thing will bolt onto that jig. The whole car will have to come up to that, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Now for the pivot point, I'm robbing some bits I've already got. So this old car stand there, that inner piece is perfect because it fits perfectly into that bit of pipe I've already got. So that'll make a perfectly strong pivot point. You see them on other cars in massive tubes like this. I see the point in that. That's plenty strong enough. So we'll cut that and make our 2 pivot points, and that would be perfect. And the rest of it is going to be built from this 2-inch box section, which I've got plenty of, so that's good news. So it's time to start chopping and cutting and making a jig. very simply, this is the basics of our jig. So we got our base piece there, which will sit across there, or sit, actually it'll sit down here somewhere. But then legs which will go in and pick up to sit on there. Then we've got our measurement from the base of that to centre of that is 32 inches, which gives us our rollover. So the next thing I'll do is just cut these tubes down so they fit into each other, and then make, you know, what I think I'll do next is set this up to weld these two bits of metal to this tube before I cut it, then cut the tube after the event, because that way I know they'll be straight with each other then. Right, thinking about it, before I do that, I'll weld these pieces together, and then I'll stand these up and weld that onto the two pieces together. It's hard to explain, but when I do it, you'll understand what I mean. Right, now I've done this properly. I think I undid the clamps too soon before the welds are cooled last time. It moved slightly, so I cut the tacks off this one and clamped it up onto the other one, so they're both exactly the same. So now these are the same. What I'll do now is clean these up so they're the same, and then get this to fit snugly into them. So it's the same. Tack it in place. I'll spread these apart before I do that. Then I'll tack this in place, and with enough space for me to get something there to cut those off. But what that means then, if I do this with this still in one piece, I got half a chance of it lining up when it's actually part of the car jig.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, that looks good in there. Let's check it for square. Come on, slightly on that one. Just a bit more out of that one. Right, they're all cleaned up, all beveled up, all clamped up, all square and plumb to each other. So just a case of squaring this up now in there. I'll tack this on. I may even fully weld across both tops here because while it's in place, let it cool down before I unclamp it all, and then cut that off. And we know these are identical to each other then. So let's get a square on it first, if I can. Okay, it's very close where it is, but I'm struggling to get the square to clamp in, so I'll put a tack in underneath here and I can tap that up to bring it spot on square. Right, I'll leave that clamped up now until it's fully cooled down. There we are, nice. These are now identical to each other. So next thing, cross bracing. Right, I'm not super worried about how super accurate these are, they're just there for strength. What did matter is already in place, but it'd be nice if they were vaguely similar. So I just tighten them up to the end here and leave them drop to wherever they come to. And that looks pretty good. I just tack them in place. so that's them both done. Got a wider angle so you can see them both there. So that's basically the frames done. So what we'll make next is the brackets coming out of the car. Now, I did think I was going to have to replace this rear panel, but after looking at it again, I think I can repair it, so which is also good news. But these bodge ups that were done by a previous owner, I'm going to make use of those to make the rollover jig brackets out of them. Around the front of the car, they're going to come off of the what will be bumper mounts there, and then they will come through the front here and pick up, or work out some way of picking up the bar for that, so that it comes up to about there somewhere. A couple of bits of 10mm cut off that chunk I got there. I had that free. They've been chucked out on a site I was working on, so happy days. So cut off 2 pieces at 1 3/4 inches wide and 13, I think, in length. And what these will do, give them a little bit of a clean up, not really about too much about what they look like. Drill these sort of there and there, and then these are poked through the front on the bumper hangers to pick up the next bit. So I'll clean these up, work out where my holes have got to be, and drill those through and work on to the next bit. Right, so there we go. That's the idea with those. So they'll bolt through there now and poke out the front. Now we've got something to aim at. Right, so I've got one of the frames of the front here. Don't worry about it sitting on the floor because everything's got to come up yet, but as it happens, where it's sitting on the floor, and this is just by pure coincidence, that's about where we want it to be. So the next thing to work out is coming from these up to the swivel point on both sides. So what I think I'll probably do is get a bit of box this front section off first between these two, and then come up off of that somehow. Right, so what I'm thinking, it's pretty simple, is cutting a piece to go in between these two and welding that in so it's plumb and level, and then so that I'd fit back there somewhere, and then come off the face of this to pick up what we need for that. I think that'd be the simplest way to do it. I did think about making this all adjustable, so when I come to doing the manta but it'd be simpler just to make a jig to suit this car, and then when down the line when I'm doing the manta, I'll just make it, this will still work, and just make a different pickup jig. So I think that's the plan. Cut that off there, weld that in between them, and then work our way up to the swivel. Right, so that's the idea for that. So that's now level and plumb, so it gives us something to build off of. I'll need to strengthen this up around here. These could have done with being a little bit, another inch longer. But hey ho, that's not the end of the world. We can strengthen that up. And wanted to get a weld down the back of that, that'll make a big difference. So I think I'll do that next. I'll pull this off, fully weld those up, and then put it back on the car again. Right, that's fully welded up those. I should have cleaned the rust off of that first, but it seemed to weld it okay, so I'm not worried about it. Right, that's now fitted back to the car, fully welded up the backs there. That possibly would be strong enough, but it'd just be comfortable. I'm going to box off these corners as well. That's box off the ends of those to put a bit of strength in those. Once I get it up, if I feel as a need, I could possibly put a little bit of a gusset in there as well, but I think that's going to be just strong enough like that. Okay, so the next challenge is to work out what we're going to do here. So I think it's just going to be simply another piece welded onto this at 90 degrees, put onto there like that, and that welded into there. Simple as that. And I think that'd be plenty strong enough. It's not a massive amount of weight on the car, so I think that'll do us just fine. Right, so I've got a bit cut out and hole in it So this now will, that'll fit into that, while that fits onto there. I wonder whether I should weld the pipe onto this first. Might be better. Yes, I think I'll do that. I'll weld this bit of pipe onto this first, so I know that's all nice and square with this, and then work out where to put that onto the car. Right, so that's that bit all welded up all the way through, nice and strong, so that can take plenty of weight. Now it's just a case of sticking it onto there. I think that needs to come down a touch. I think I'll leave that loose on the car now, because that gives us a bit of waggling room for us to play with. So double check our centres and Bob's who won't go. Right, we're looking good. Let's weld it under the car. Right, I reckon that's a job's a good one. So you can fully weld those along there and around the back here. I'll pull it out of the car now to do that. I think I'll fully weld these on while it's on the car. I'll fully weld what I can get to, and then I'll take it off to finish off the welding. We're getting somewhere. So that's the basics of it. Now, of course, this whole lot has to move up by about 4 inches as it happens, or 5 inches, for the base of this to fit flush with the base of the top of the base jig, if that makes sense. So, but that's the idea. So you get next thing to make some legs that will go in and to fit on, and somehow work a way of bolting them down. Right, after sitting and staring at this for more than time than I'd like to have wasted, I've come up with a solution. Okay, so I was wondering how I was going to get this to sit across there. So the simple way would have been just to weld a 2-inch box section from there onto there. But that makes it a little more difficult for the future. So I come up with a plan where 2x1 box will slide in and out of this box section here, and to hold it in place, and to drill through 10mm holes and then bolt it in place. And on the back end of here, where the bolts come through, I'll tack weld a 10mm nut. And that way, when I say 10mm, I mean 10mm thread, not 10mm head. So it's a 17mm head. So nice strong bolts, and that'll hold that in place. And over here then, work out a way, so probably some 2-inch box section coming down, and then bolt through there and somehow tied up here so it keeps it square, stops it rocking around. That's the plan for that. And you can see I've got the car up off the jig now and jacked up to almost to the height. It needs to come up another inch, to line up with that. But before we do that, we need to sort out the back of the car. Now, if you've been following from the start, you may recognise that. This is my temporary jig I built right at the beginning. I had it hanging off of a engine stand. So what I'm going to see if I can reuse that, stick that back in the car and see if we can line it up for that. Alright, I could use that if I really wanted to speed things up, but it sticks out quite a long way. So what I'll probably do is measure up and cut these off about here somewhere and make up a jig to join up to that jig like I did on the front. It's I think it'd just be neater and a bit less in the way. Right, so I've got those cut off. So that leaves me with two nice and strong bits of box section we can connect to. Now, of course, all this will be cut out eventually, but we'll come back to that. That's okay. This is what we're worried about for now. So before we move on to this though, I really should go back to the front of the car and finish mounting up the jig on that. Otherwise I'm going backwards and forwards, yeah. And the first thing I'm going to do is measure up these lengths here and cut off 4 of these and start making these pieces up for all corners, and then we can start mounting that to suit that. Right, just a little tip here for when you're welding captive nuts on. Exposed thread, cover up with more nuts, because as you're welding, spatter will get on the thread and you have a difficulty getting the bolt out then. This one I just drilled in one side, this one I drilled all the way through because the main thrust is going to be on that one. It'll sit on there, but as it tries to push down, it's going to try and pull up on that one. So bolted all the way through and tied on a nut there, and I'll put a nut on the end of it as well. So this now will simply slip into there and bolt up, and happy days. Right, so that's bolted into there. That's now super strong, bolted over through there as well, so that's not going anywhere. That's now part of that base jig, so that's plenty strong enough. I'll do the same for the other side, and then we'll see about connecting it up to that. A little addition, added these little extra feet on it. So what I'm going to do now is get a 2-inch box like that, cut a 4-inch piece off of it and weld that down. That way we can get 2 bolts through, and that gives that plenty of stability then that way as well. Right, so there's the little legs attached now. So what I'm going to do now is drill through 2 bolts, so that'll be nice and secure then, and then drill through where I've marked there, which will correspond with the hole that's already existed in that bit of pipe in there, and make a locking pin. There we are, just like that. So it's drilled through and bolted through, and now that is rock solid. So that's good. I'll do the other side now, and I think we can drop the car. We're almost at it anyway. Drop the car onto that front jig. We are sitting on the front jig. Got to drill that through, so there's a 12mm bolt now in there, so that's nice and solid. We'll soon be able to take away the front chassis jig there, and I've got it propped up on the back now, so it's sitting level with the jig again. So the next challenge is to make the 2 extension pieces for the back of the jig there, mount that onto those, and then work our way back up to the back of the car there. And having thought about it, I'm going to make these rear extensions quite a bit longer, because then I can pull them out when I use this jig at a later date on the Manta. The Manta is a fair bit longer than the Escort, by about 2 foot. So I'll be able to bring those out to suit the Manta. And if I find there's a bit too much flex in it, I'll add feet to them so we can land them on the floor. But that's, I need to worry about that right now, because here they only need to stick out 10 inches or so. Alright, so getting these legs made up, and it's occurred to me this is going to be easy to drill this on the pillar drill rather than struggling like I did it just on my knees. So I've tacked this leg piece, so this is the leg that will go underneath there on this, So I've tacked it onto here. I'll take this to the pillar drill now and drill through and bolt this. Drill it through, cut the tacks off, then bolt it straight to this. I'll do this on both of them. Right, after drilling these out, and because they're not attached to anything else just yet, I reckon I can get a captive nut in there and in on that one. So which is going to make assembly a lot easier. So happy days, unexpected bonuses. Lovely, happy days. So these are now freed of the tack welds and loose in their own right, are now bolted in to these legs. So the next step now is to get the legs bolted into the jig frame at about 10 inches out is where we need to be, and then start building up to the attach that piece of the jig, and then start building to it from there. Right, so that measures now 10 inches from there, and that one the same, and clamped in nice and tight. So what we'll just simply do is drill in 2 places like I did on the front and bolt that into place. Right, that is now welded down onto its legs, and that's bolted in. Some funny sized bolt heads going on here now because I've run out of 10mm bolts. I'm just getting whatever I can scrounge at the moment. I'll have to order some to make them all the same. So this is all nice and solid now. That's rock solid, that is. So next challenge is to build up from there. So I'm going to put this piece here is going to go face onto those that's sticking out, then like I did on the front, just build up to that there. Right, we're getting closer. I've got a crossbar welded onto there. I've got this L piece welded up with our inner tube welded onto it. Just need to weld across the top of there yet. I've forgotten about that. So we just need to get that into there now and weld that to there. Right, I'm glad I bolted these together at the bottom and didn't weld them, because I now need to have a bit of give in this to get this in place because it was too tight. With it bolted up. So small mercies. Right, all clamped up, centralised up, and ready for the last bit of welding. And then showtime, we can see if it works. Right, moment of truth, will it work? Well, I'm going to call that a success. It doesn't go right over. I'm not overly worried about that. I think like when I was taking my measurements, I didn't take into account measurement across to the corner. So that's from there to there is 32 centre. It is very slightly bottom heavy, so the 32 centre, to get that, if I wanted to go right over, maybe I should have gone to 34, the centre between the pivot point and what would effectively be the floor if this is being used on the floor. And the pivot point, it is very slightly bottom heavy, so I think the pivot point probably could have been a couple of inches lower. So that needs to be the same height, but the whole car needs to come up a couple of inches really for the pivot point. But it's not impossible to use. It turns quite easy enough. It just won't stay where it's turned to, so I'll have to prop it up. Drill another hole in here somewhere to support it, but it's fine. It's working. It's doing what I want it to do. Well, there you go. All done. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was useful to you. There's no real dimensions as such for the jig. The base of it is 1200 wide, 1200 millimeters wide, or what's that? 12, 24, 36, about 48 inches wide. And from the what would it be, the floor level or the top of my jig level up to the center of the pivot point is 32, and that's just the basic T-piece. So you've got the T-piece is 48 inches and 32 up to the pivot point, and the rest is just triangulated off, and that suits the Escort. Like I said, when I tested it, it's a little bottom heavy, so the pivot point could be a little bit higher up, but that's not the dimension between the floor and the pivot point. That's where it pivots on the car. So you can see on the car here, it could do with pivoting a bit further down, so the whole car could do with coming up just a little bit. Doesn't make it difficult to use or anything. It's quite easy to turn it over. It just means I got to be a bit more cautious about how I support it. I may yet build a little stand that I can bolt to the car and bolt down to the jig. Just there's plenty of places for me to bolt things to, so just to be super secure. But thanks again for watching, thanks for subscribing, and thanks for your comments. Brilliant. See you on the next one.